blood of Jesus. I believe you're experiencing greatness, and God is proving himself to be faithful in the name and in the blood of Jesus. We are so excited. God is doing something great, something unusual in your life and in your destiny in the name and the blood of Jesus. Wherever you are watching from, I believe that you are having a week. You are having a great new week in the name of Jesus, and God is proving himself to be faithful to you. All right, so we'll be talking today on matters that has to do with relationships, and I have people that I have in the panel today where we'll be talking about these matters in the name and in the blood of Jesus. God bless you. Let me see who's coming in. Show me. So good evening, everybody, and so we bless the name of the living God. Sorry for that. I don't know what's happening, but all right. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just tag yes. We hear you. All right. If you can hear me, just tag yes. We hear you. We hear you. We hear you. All right. I don't know what has been happening with the sound there, but I believe I'm now more audible. All right. Can you hear me now? I believe our sound is now okay, right? All right. I believe our sound is now okay, and we can hear each other very well. All right. I believe our sound is now okay, and you can hear me from wherever you are. You can hear me from whatever place in which you are. All right, so we want to talk about something that is very practical concerning us and relationships. All right, concerning us and relationships. Everybody, when they enter to be in a relationship, their goal is to build something that will probably lead to marriage, build something that will probably bring you to a place where at least people will celebrate that you are in a union of some sort. All right. So there are a lot of reasons that I believe many people have come to a place that in as much as they've tried to build relationships, some people have already given up on relationships because of the experiences that they have gone through. And those are some of the things that we are really going to try to speak about today. Some of the experiences that you would have gone through because of relationships, some of the experiences that would have happened to you because of these matters that have to do with relationships. All right, so while you are in the comment section, all right, you can also give in your own input on experiences of what do you think goes wrong when people are in a place where you are building a relationship and things don't go as they should. What is it that goes wrong? What is it that affects good relationships, and all of a sudden something that looked very promising changes to be the worst nightmare of your life? Something that you were looking at and saying, I think this is what is going to give me happiness, and all of a sudden it becomes your worst nightmare. All right, your worst nightmare. So I'm gonna ask the first panelist, what has been your experience? Let's start maybe from the aspect. What has been your experience in church, and how has these matters of relationships really affected you? How has these matters of relationships really affected you?
Thank you, Apostle. I think we're just getting some feedback, so I was trying to, but I hope everybody can hear me. Good evening to all the listeners as well. If I may, I think there is a concept amongst the Christian community of what is a perfect relationship. And I think when we are in churches, mostly we strive for this perfect relationship that may have been portrayed by either the lead couple, first lady, and the pastor as well. But I think relationships need to be approached from a very practical sense, that we demystify this concept of could, or you would never break up with this person, but the more and you know them, the more you see that the two of you are not as compatible as you once thought. Not rely on somebody else's opinion of that, oh, you guys look so cute, you are just heavenly matched and everything, but it's a personal thing that you need to evaluate. So I'm personally not a believer on such a concept of perfect relationships. What you consider perfect for me can be considered a miserable thing for somebody else. So there's various reasons, or while a relationship may feel particularly perfect at a point in time. For instance, people who are in a relationship that other people think is perfect from outside can feel a lot of pressure to keep up appearances, and as a result they push down their real desires and goals for the sake of continuing to look perfect, because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and you're trying to keep up appearances. So this leads to a feeling of feeling trapped and wanting to leave the relationship just to escape the pressure. Quite know where it all went wrong. I think maybe tonight we can weigh in on what happened and why all relationships have flaws, because there is no such thing as a perfect relationship, and we shouldn't deny ourselves in actually going deeper in what these flaws that can happen are.
All right. All right. I think somebody, you have heard that for yourself, that there are really aspects in which it can be so. All right. To our second panelist, what is it that you feel that also maybe on your side as your first point, what is it that has been your experience outside? We have had the issue of people keeping up appearances because they are trying to match with the first family of the church. What has been your experience, and what has been some of the things that you have really been maybe a bad side on your experience of relationships around the church sector? Yes.
They tend to think that me as a person, I also am a spirit with your person. So the person just tends to be so spiritual every time. You are not given your time. they are just like, okay, today I'm doing this, today I'm doing that, and I'm not considered like I'm kind of not significant in that person's life. So I'm not given time. And as us women especially, we need so much of time, we need so much of attention.
I think what the minister is alluding to is very true, because couples rarely communicate what they're actually thinking, and communication is very integral in a relationship. So people assume that they are following the same ideals, and they prioritize work or they prioritize certain activities in church, and you forget that you've got a ministry to a particular person. So communication for me is very integral. Otherwise, your so-called perfect relationship will definitely fall apart. If your partner doesn't communicate with you much or doesn't communicate well, it is a signal of trouble ahead of time. So that's an alarm bell that you pick up earlier in the relationship. They don't communicate with you, they don't communicate well with you, and you do things, but you don't stop to ask your partner what do they actually really think. But if you take out time to communicate, chances are, as well, you can't avoid arguments. Let me just dispel this thing that you're going to avoid arguments just because you're communicating, right? You are going to have arguments, and then realize that things are actually not so perfect. But it's good, because then you are actually collecting the right data so that you can decipher crap and just move on to the real thing. So a sense of perfection could really mean that there is really a lack of communication, because you're trying to be this perfect person and this perfect couple in front of everybody, and while you're not on the same page in terms of what a relationship means to you, in terms of the time you require, as the other panelist also said, that you need more time. Women are very attention seeking, and if you continue to prioritize your work, no matter how much money or so-called bacon in the world, as they call it, at home, it doesn't really make up for the fact that you need to spend time with your wife, or or in that relationship, and giving the person time. And I think also another thing that is a challenge is that a couple then grows apart sometimes as well. So naturally, you and your partner, you change as life goes on, and as your relationship evolves, and these changes make your so-called perfect relationship start to feel not so perfect. You are going to grow, you're going to change as you go on, your everyday life. So over time, for example, the things that will change are your values, your goals will change, and these kind of smaller things, they cause couples to grow in different directions. Or sometimes, somebody then creates a significant shift in priorities, and the relationship can't catch up. Say, for example, somebody who decides that I'm going to develop myself educationally. That is going to take up a lot of time. There's a little joke, I think, when I was still studying, actually post-studying, and I realized that I wanted to do a master's degree. And one of the things that they tell you in class, in the first level of the master's, they tell you need to realize that you've chosen a course that may very well break up your relationship. So if your partner never knew that you wanted to even study in a particular stream that is going to take away time from him or the family, that can be a completely derailment, completely. So I don't know what the other panelists also has a comment on that or not. So I don't take over the discussion too much.
So in other sense, you can come to a place where you can grow apart because of values. That people, the more the relationship grow, while the relationship is growing, you can come to a place where you grow apart. And that is where many people do not really get it, that sometimes there is an aspect of growing apart between two people, and you have to come to a place where when the relationship grow, you have to also grow with the relationship. Where you started with the relationship is not where you are, and understanding that as we grow, our values change, our perspective when it comes to life changes. If at the first place I had certain dreams, by the moment I'm growing to a certain stage of life, those dreams change. And also he spoke about an aspect of attention, that people have to give each other time to grow into each other, so that growing with, when you two grow with each other and understanding your person, it will be easy for you to even translate and understand also their language. It might be their love language, or how they are seeing things. All right, yes, second panelist, I'm seeing your hand is raised. Yes, we can hear you.
I understand that you are busy with work, you are busy with, I don't know, whatever that you be doing, but just like keeping following somebody, it seems like you are not being valued, you are not a priority, you are not needed. So it is discouraging because there is no contribution. It's just like it's only you in the relationship, or it's only you who is trying to make it work, and yet the other part is quiet, or they are like dragging you behind. So when you are in a relationship, it's about the two of you. So both of you must work together to build it. So we need that communication, we need that attention, we need like to be valued.
I think my fellow panelist mentions a very important aspect from what I can take home from what she's saying. That connection is necessary. Don't focus on a superficial connection, but strive for having a deeper connection with the person, right? Initially, when you're compatible with someone, you may connect in several ways, but you may get to know each other, and the more you realize you don't connect on some deeper issues, like as we said initially, values or your faith or your religion. So while everyone has their own deal breakers, it is important to assess what yours are as well, and if the relationship can still continue, right? And that speaks to connection. So you need to be present, you need to be attentive. Don't have a superficial connection, go deeper. And some couples seem to fit perfectly together because they come from a similar background, and that may really work for you. And you are, similarly attractive, or you have the same life goals. Those kind of compatibilities are helpful, but they're not enough. They're far from enough. Even couples who fit perfectly on these obvious dimensions may not have more important things in common in life. Like, for example, do you have the same interest in the same topics, in the same activities? Do you find the same things being funny? So that it takes away all those awkward moments when you are in front of people, or you're in a company and you don't even laugh at your partner's jokes, and then you make them feel awkward and stupid. Do you have the similar needs for affection? Did you even discuss whether you like being held in public? Do you want your hands held in public? Do you like your partner, your husband, touching your bumps, for example? Do you have the same needs for sex and emotional intimacy? So connection is very, very important to really delve into.
Wow, that is something else that you brought in right there, that sometimes the issue of people not being in the same, not having the same interests, sometimes having people not having the same understanding of how to do things. And also I believe, while we touch on that, it also leads us to the aspect of two people's love language, two people's love language. And I believe that is much of, there are points that you have risen that I believe that when it comes to the church sector, or when it comes to the environment of the church, we have seen that we deal less with issues of relationships on a practical basis. We always speak about mainly two things. If it is not submission, we are talking about love. Love your wife as Christ loved the church, or we are speaking about an aspect to say, wives, submit to your husband. But the aspect of, all right, how does the submission grow? How does one grow into submission? How does someone's love grow? Because I believe love grows also, and submission grows. I believe I want to submit this to the panels on what's your understanding? How does submission grow between two people? How does love grow between two people? I'll start with the second panelist.
Okay. When it grows when both the people are working together. Teamwork is always very important. So when everybody is standing where they should be, don't leave space for like something. Let's say you're supposed to wake up and say good morning, and you do not wake up to say good morning. You are not doing what you are supposed to do, and that will make me like question. So you didn't wake up and say good morning. Not necessarily that it must be done, but there are things that you must just know that I need to do this. You can't be told, okay, I want you to do A, B, C, D, but you know how are you expressing your love? Then it grows. You are working together. So I think like working together is the most important part. So both of you still needs that contribution to make it work. So that's how it grows, as you'll be seeing that this person is interested in making it work. And also you also put your effort. Other than if one is only putting effort, then it can't grow because not like enough work is being put in the relationship.
All right. So there has to be an aspect of both parties understanding how to bring in effort or do effort into the relationship. As in, there are things that you have to know, that you have to do. If it is about attention, the way you show attention to your person. All right, I'm really getting you.
I think what the minister is also saying, I've been reading the comments also on Facebook. Nonsigalelo mentioned something very powerful. It says no communication. These are things that are very simplistic and often you forget about them, that they help in the issues of submission. Those are deal breakers for a person. And there are simple things like lack of respect. If you don't respect your partner, it becomes very difficult for them to submit naturally. I think if you look at what the scripture says, that love your wife as Christ loves the church. So, if you take it from that approach and you would respect the body of Christ, you would respect the Spirit of the Holy Spirit, you respect Christ, there's a certain way that you wouldn't speak, there's a certain way you wouldn't treat the person. So naturally, the reverence with which you approach Christ, if you bring that into your relationship and you bring that level of respect, the same respect that you give your bosses, hopefully you do give your bosses that's a respect, you bring it home. Don't be a different kind of species when you get home. What are the deal breakers, so that you make each other understand right at the beginning of the relationship. Those things flow. Women are naturally loving beings. For example, if you love me, I flow naturally. I remember growing up, as I was going in and out of different relationships, and people used to say, you're not submissive. And I said, what do you mean? But it was people that are not, they're not really communicating, and maybe they had a challenge communicating what they were saying. Some assumed that because I was a boss at work, I would have a problem submitting. But, I think, Apostle, one needs to even break down what is the expectation of the submission in the men's eyes, for example. But there are simple things, as I say, when you love me naturally, I submit naturally. It's not supposed to be a staged kind of thing. You're not even supposed to be conscious about it. It just flows. Submission really just flows. So I like the points that were raised by Nonsigilelo on no communication, and you have lack of vision. It's difficult to submit to somebody who's a bum, who's always sitting on the couch, who's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? No ambition in life. You may have looked cute, you may have been handsome when we met up, but handsome doesn't sustain a marriage. It's a good thing to marry this person. You look good on the pictures, you look fine on the pictures. Maybe you had a bit of money that attracted me at the time, and I thought, okay, this person is hardworking. But did I go deeper to collect enough data to understand how are you going to be in marriage before you turn into something else, as I said? So that is my view on that, on the issue of submission.
All right. So yes, you can hear that it grows, and every party has got something to contribute as far as the issue of marriage is concerned and growing. I'm seeing there is a question there in the panel, and somebody say, explain the difference between interests and compatibility. Are these different? Is there anyone who would want to attack that question? The difference between interests and compatibility.
Okay, I think compatibility is like an umbrella term, and then interest comes like as a subtopic. Like, are you compatible with like things that interest you? So I think like the compatibility is like in everything. You must be compatible with what you like how you pray, or like your spiritual levels and all. But like interest, it just like comes as like it's under compatibility.
All right. I think the issue of you have to bring yourself down in understanding that interests has to do mainly with an individual, what you are interested in as a person. So you'd realize that when it is interest, sometimes it can delude you, because remember, when people are in a relationship, one of the things is everybody they are trying to be perfect, and one of the advices that can be there is, if a relationship is to work, I believe the chess must not be one trying to be perfect in the sight of maybe the person they're getting to be in a relationship with, but bring yourself to a place where you don't pursue perfection, but you pursue originality. The person who you are, it has to know you, that person has to see you. The moment you try to be perfect, there is a way you cover up the real you. And sometimes you see now, you camouflage yourself in the interests of the person, the interest that you know that the person you are with thinks that they are interested in. And that can be mistaken to compatibility. I believe compatibility comes in when two people are showing who they are. And we see through now their traits, their characters, that really these people, in their genuine, in them themselves being genuine, they really are going in synchronity, or they are one. That's what I believe. And also the point that was raised by Minister there. So I believe as a person, that is one of the things. But also, while we are talking on compatibility, and I think I raised 2 points, I spoke about an issue of trying to be perfect and trying to be original. What happens when, because pretense is not meant to be permanent. Every pretense has got a timeline, it has got a time frame. What really happens, if anybody has ever had an experience of when you said, now this person is showing their true characters, this is really them, what was your reaction? What was your reaction being with a person who you thought you knew them until they really showed you a certain character? Now that character that really it was now them. What is your reaction? What really happened on you? Maybe after a period of you trying to build that relationship, then you started to realize that the person you thought you were with is not really the person who you were with.
Apostle, I think one of the biggest turn-offs for me has been discovering the selfishness side of a person. You know, when you're in a relationship, yes, there's a degree of selfishness that you can expect about certain things, but you slowly begin to see that a person becomes selfless overall, you know. And however, if one of you lets selfishness overpower selflessness, you need to watch out. That's an alarm bell. And that for me created a very shaky ground because of who I am, the nature of what I do, and the family that I come from, the values that I come from. So selfishness versus a person who is selfless is a very big issue for me. And you know, often great relationships rely on partners being willing to give to each other on many levels, whether they're giving emotionally, physically, spiritually, or materially. There's a balance, there's a sense of equality, there's a sense of I give and I take. And I believe this is very necessary in relationships. But if one becomes very selfish in your life goals, in your day-to-day life, or, you know, otherwise, so I begin to shift significantly and say, no, this is not that. That's not who I thought I was coming into a relationship with.
So the aspect of a person changing, meaning if they are now selfish, there is a point where maybe the issue of selflessness was once in view. All right. Our second panelist, what has been your experience?
Okay, the thing is, like, you know, like when you start, yeah, as you said, like everybody will be like trying to please, to be acting perfect, but as you go, you know, pretend you can't long live it. It's just like for a short time, and then when a person changes, or they are now starting to show like traits that you do not want or that you do not like, then maybe firstly, like, you can talk to the person, this thing that you are doing, because like as we said about communication, we communicate about everything, how I'm feeling about like how our relationship is going. I can now tell you, okay, this thing that you are doing, it does not go well with me, and I expect you to change. But like if you do not change, me actually, I told myself that I will not continue with the relationship simply because I love a person. I will not ignore, or I will not take things that I mustn't. When I tell you, okay, I do not want you to do this, and you keep on doing it, it's like then you are enjoying it, but I can't keep up with it. But for me, what I really can't take is insecurity. I want to be trusted because I believe a person is not an object. You know, an object, you can take it, you can leave it here. Somebody can come, can take and put whatever that they want. But if I'm a person, I know what I want. If I say today I'm gonna be in a relationship with this person, don't be like thinking that I'm crazy. I'm gonna go today, go to this person and that person. I know what I want. That's why I'm here. So I don't want a person who will be like, who were you talking to? What was that? And oh, so I want to be trusted. I want to be like treated like I know what I want. So when now you start to act as if I don't know what I want, or like I'm an object that somebody can just come and carry and go or something, I do not like that. I want, actually, I'll quit.
How does the other person deal with insecurity? Because I think it's a real issue based on people getting to experiences and relationships, and it's something that really we can't really hide from, that it is real. How does one deal with insecurity as far as maybe getting into another relationship? How does one deal with that? I think that is a question that someone is asking, to say, all right, I was in a relationship where maybe they were cheated, maybe they were hurt, and maybe certain traits of what they saw in the previous relationships, they are seeing it in their new relationship. And in trying to raise their guard, to protect themselves, it begins to show up as insecurity. How does one deal with that insecurity of the past? when maybe there are traits and maybe certain words of things that were done in the previous relationship when they are beginning to see it in the present relationship? How does one deal with that?
I think for me, what resonates from what you're saying, Apostle, is that what you're mentioning can very well lead to betrayal, right? In a relationship. And one of the big things that we need to be mindful of is that we need to be honest. Honesty is the most essential thing in a relationship. And what you're saying can very well lead to betrayal. And if betrayal occurs, it can damage the relationship a lot. And we need to remember that dishonesty is a choice. The nature and degree of the other party who has made the mistake of dishonest behavior may be so big to cause the other person to lose faith and trust. And sometimes the trust can be restored, but sometimes the feelings of betrayal are so intense and the relationship cannot move forward. So even if the couple tries to look good on the surface and put together, we need to be mindful of the fact that they're not struggling behind the scenes with the things that you've just mentioned as well. So other people end up having affairs, and they're very challenging. Couples don't move past that experience. They're very challenging to get through, and they will often instigate the parting of ways. I think that's my 2 cents worth. Maybe Minister can also come in.
I think like you need time. You know, like when you have been disappointed, because like every time when you get in a relationship, you are looking forward maybe to get to marriage, maybe even like you have like made families, you have plans, and then you get disappointed, or maybe the person just cheats out of nowhere and all. But after that, I think you need to have time to heal. Because like if you do not heal and you just rush into another relationship, you'll be bleeding there. You're gonna bleed on an innocent person. So you need time to heal. And also don't like think that everybody is the same. You mustn't be comparing that, okay, because your ex did this one is gonna do this. At least like give them like a chance to prove that they can be different. So I think you mustn't just go with like these people, or girls are the same, or guys are the same. So give yourself time to heal and stop comparing people. Move past it and start afresh. Like I'm gonna give this person a chance without the mindset that they're gonna cheat on me. I think that will help.
I think also I noticed what the woman of God also says. I think on the chat, Minister Adelaide, mentioning the issue of the insecurities that come from previous relationships and experiences. What I've seen a lot, even while talking to other people who are coming for coaching relationships, they don't give themselves time to stop and heal. They jump on one relationship to the other. So you need to realize that you need time out.
Dating, what does one do when love is burning?
No, I don't think often it's love is burning. I think it's the getting used to a certain pattern of lifestyle. You're used to getting the phone calls, you're used to getting the kisses, you're used to getting the sex. So now all of a sudden this is taken away. You don't have time, so you don't even get time to evaluate the next relationship that you're jumping into. And you have not really processed and healed and found out what is it that didn't make the other relationship work. You've been run down, your confidence is so down that you end up now even spotting the person that is really compatible to you, that you really desire to be with. You throw away all those discernments that you don't see that this is not the person. But I sometimes put it this way: you are in love with the relationship of being in love. You are in love with the idea of being in love.
But
so you are so used to this routine. I choose to be single. I choose to develop myself. I choose to work on myself during this season. So let's not jump. You will definitely bleed on the other person. And two people who are bleeding, nobody's healing. There's not enough bandages that you're going to heal. So take out time. It's okay to be single. Don't just go with the vibe. Everybody is not single. People in church can actually put so much pressure on people, that they are always talking about. Let me speak from my personal experience. I was once in a ministry where the lady pastor only spoke about marriage, and you felt so inadequate. And when you were not having these dreams at that time, honestly, I think I was starting university and I did not have desire of being in a relationship. But every time I got to church, the conversation somehow turned to marriage. And I was thinking to myself, is marriage the only thing that one, has to look forward to? But that was her prism. That was her scope of wanting to grow. Is like, okay, let's just all get married. And when you're not in a couple, imagine that. I was in a church that put pressure on me to be in a relationship, but I was interested in actually growing spiritually in other areas, and that caused me to see, there is no balance here. I cannot be hearing about marriage and how my husband has to carry me from the bathroom, because that limits my scope of growth. I cannot be thinking this is it. I'm a woman, and the only thing I need to aspire to just to be kissed and this is it. You know what I mean? We don't encourage people to grow beyond. But there's seasons as well. That is why I prefer churches that offer a holistic type of learning atmosphere. I don't know what other people have heard, because some people end up getting into relationships because that's the only thing that you hear the buzzword when you get into church. They're only talking about relationships.
All right. So a lot of people, it's pressure in the idea of being in a relationship, but not that you are ready for the relationship. And I think that is what affects. For some would say, but do not take too long being single. That lifestyle is too comfortable. I don't know if it is too comfortable, especially in winter, but
but it offers you time to learn more about yourself and what you really want. And it often gives you time to achieve those personal goals that you want to achieve before you bring in another person. Because marriage is a ministry. You find that the things that you wanted to pursue as a young person, as a single person, you will not have time for. And that's the reality that people need to realize. There are things you will not have time for once you're in marriage. So get your act together while you're still single. You might not, in as much as you might have a husband who says, I'm understanding, I'm for the personal growth of my wife and everything. There are certain things in personal development that you will not be able to achieve with a good sense of balance once you are married. So use your time wisely so that you bring your whole self into the relationship. Don't be the kind of person who still wants to explore A, B, C, D. Kids will take up your time. Kids need time to be raised. They don't want you to be gallivanting all over the show and now you're trying to live out all the dreams you had as a single person. So don't cheat yourself. There is no hurry, and don't rush into something because you're burning. As Apostle says that it's winter time now, you have extra extended pressure. Let me be honest, at a point when we were growing up, we thought burning needed to be addressed urgently. You go into churches, you get these prophecies and says you by this time next year you will be married, by this 3 months you will be married, and then this is your last winter alone. Such comments, they put so much unnecessary pressure on people, and you now focus on the burning aspect, and meanwhile it did not even have to be there.
So the more they speak about it, the more it appears.
Yes.
Pastors, are you hearing this? Stop prophesying about marriage. Our second panelist, what do you think about what has just been said?
Okay. I would say really, like when you get a heartbreak, you really want a pain relief. It's just like you're having a headache and you need Panadol to relieve your headache. That is mostly what happens. After a heartbreak, you want to find comfort. But I would advise that it's better you find your comfort in God. Because if you try to go into another relationship before you heal, you are so vulnerable. You are bound to make mistakes. You're bound to go with the wrong person. You actually won't end up having a heartbreak, but you have your spinal cord will be broken. When you hear about love next time, you go in blankets because of the trauma. So it's not just about just rushing. You'll be paralyzed, trust me. So you need that time to heal. You are the one who always like teaches us that don't fall in love. You see, like that time when you just be like, I miss being kissed, what you just fall in love. You don't make that decision. So you make a terrible mistake, it will be worse. So it's better to just sit and heal. When you are finally healed, when you find your healing in God, not on another person, so that will actually work. So have time to heal. Yes, it will be, you will be burning, but don't listen to that. Make a decision when you are ready to go in a relationship.
How does one spinal cord break? I want to understand. I need clarity on that. How does one spinal cord break? Please expound on that point.
No, the heart will already be broken, so you break the next thing. Because they've gotten in a relationship with a heart that is already broken. So you can't keep breaking what's already broken. You break the next thing and it will be the spinal cord.
My God, that is beyond. That is beyond. But I think it's an issue that is to be looked on as far as relationships are concerned. And I think I'm gonna ask one of the last questions that I'll give to each as a panel. An aspect of I believe people being together, they are meant to grow together. At what point do people reach where they say we might have been good together, but this thing no longer works? What is it that causes people to get to a point where they say this thing is no longer working, or you are no longer the person that I knew? What changes people for a person to come to a point where they say you are no longer the person that I knew?
First of all, I don't know whether I should take this one. I think you mentioned two things: growth. When does growth stop? And also the aspect where asking, when you get to the point where you say you're no longer the person I knew. One of the things that I've experienced in my relationships with the opposite sex is a deal breaker that says, how do you react in grief and loss? And I've often tried to even mimic these situations way ahead before we even think of going serious, because that for me is the one other deal breaker that I need to know. How do you react in grief and loss, right? Loss can change the landscape of how we are as a relationship, and the grief from events, for example, like death of a child or a family member, can make a relationship a very painful place to remain. So when somebody reacts in an opposite way than I was expecting, that for me is coming to a point and say, you may have shown me the goodie side and all these things, but I want the good, and I want, when things are also going bad, to understand who you are as a person. I want to understand who you will be if there's issues of infertility, for example. I want to understand who you will be when we start suffering financial problems, because nothing is ever that smooth. And some people break when they have big financial problems. Because big financial problems for a relationship, for example, can create an end of a dream. And it's often very hard to get together on that. But coming to the aspects of growth, you get to a point where you feel like you have grown so much apart from each other that there's no more growing to do. And these things happen. When a relationship feels perfect to the people in it, it could be because there isn't anywhere else to grow. Things are working, yes, but introducing something new might not be possible because things are working so well, and so the other person does not have room to allow you to grow. And when things are working so well, it often leads to a feeling of stagnation. You feel restless, and you feel like, okay, this is perfect, don't break it, let me not stretch myself. And when you stop growing, it can also lead to fear. And that means there is no balance. The balance is not maintained. The entire relationship now starts falling apart. The fear starts to intrude in your daily life on the feelings of love. Instead of doing loving actions towards one another, you start doing things from a fearful position. And it eventually tears people apart. You are fearing that the relationship may break, and therefore you're just doing things out of an obligatory perspective. You start growing apart. It's like, okay, if I introduce something new, it just won't work. So I think, that for me spells the start of growing apart. And from my experience, as I said, the way people have reacted, for example, to things like grief and loss, that is my turning point. I just drift away. I'm done. I can see that I cannot grow with you. I cannot only grow with you when things are good and when the money's flowing, but I want to know who you are when things are bad. And trauma and grief tend to tap inside of you and pull that thing inside of you to grow. And you begin to understand whether the person is matured enough to handle life situations, as they will often come in the future.
All right, there you have it, that there is a point where growth becomes stunt in a relationship, and that really brings people to a place where there is a lot of friction and all. I believe I'll bring in that question lastly to our second panelist.
Okay, I can say like when the relationship is costing too much, like there is that person who will be like, they just want to be them. It's all about them in that relationship. I'm not considered. Sorry?
The issue of selfishness that was said earlier.
Yeah, I'm not being considered. How I feel is not being considered. My family, they are being set aside. They are like the source of life for me. Like some relationships too, even they cost your relationship with God. Like the person that you trying to build something with, they drag you far from God, or like they trying to cause, maybe you want to follow sexual purity, and they are coming in, they try to make you defile yourself, you understand? Or that's so like that relationship will be costing too much. I can't pay that price. So I'll be like, no, I can't continue. And
I think as you finish that would be our next topic, the cost of relationships. I think it's something that one has to look at. You can finish up on that.
Okay, and also cheating. We don't want to be blaming the devil where the devil is not involved. When just a person lacks self-control, when the person is greedy, you want to make a perfect person using 5 people. I can't deal with that. Okay, let me take since I'm a lady, I'll take like it's a guy here. I'm dating a guy, and now he is cheating. Like, let's say he got like more than one girlfriend, simply because for me, he likes me because I have a dimple. He goes to the other person, he likes her because she's light in complexion. He gets to another person, he likes her because she got a structure. This one, he likes her because she has money. So he's trying to build one perfect person by what I don't have. He goes and looks for it on the other person. So that is very greedy. Right. I can't deal with that.
So it's like taking 5 people, trying to merge them to be one.
Yeah, so you have everything that you want. So it's either you choose me with my perfections and my imperfections. You can't be like, okay, where you are not good, where you are not perfect, I'll find somebody to fit in. I can't work with that.
All right.
Also, when there's not that trust that I once spoke about, when there's no trust, actually, when in a relationship there's no trust, there's nothing. There is always friction. You are always fighting because of insecurities. You're always thinking that you are questioning, like if the person is committed, if the person loves you. So most of the times you'll be just fighting. And also when the relationship doesn't like have a vision, like like we are here but it looks like we are not going anywhere. We just here, no plans for the future, nothing is moving. It's just like we are still maybe teenagers who are just playing while they're in school. And yet,
So
like I'm older, I need to see where I'm going. So when a person is just like we are just here playing, no, it has to end because like there's no production.
yeah, so
And
there
also,
has to be communication between two people so that they
yeah,
understand where they are going, not just as individuals, but also as
mm,
people that are in a relationship, to say where are we really going, what is it that do we really want to achieve in or
yes.
out of this relationship.
Okay, yeah, and lastly, I can say like when a person uses my past against me, like most of us, we have like things that we did before. We made mistakes, we did all that. But if I trust you enough to open up to you, I trust that you are mature to handle like my past or things that I messed up properly. But if like anytime that we fight, you say, that's why this thing happened, or that's why you did that before, you can't like keep flashing my past in front of me. It's just like you're making me, I can't like sit here and think like my whole life I'm gonna live with my past in front of me because it's past where I have moved on, I have changed, I have like I can't correct that past, but I don't want it to keep coming in my face. So when a person keeps using that against you, that is not a good sign. You always being hurt with your past. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
All right.
that's all for
All
now.
right. So let me just give the panelists so that they can just give a summary of what we spoke about and closing remarks of what is it that we dealt with today.
Thank you, Apostle. I think my closing comments, I want to start with something that Neo said on the comments and maybe answer that to say there is nothing wrong with love, but the problem lies with people that has loved you wrong. And I just want to say to that comment, communicate how you want to be loved. For you to identify they loved you wrong, take time to communicate how you want to be loved. But in my closing remarks, I would really encourage people to say, don't try to avoid conflict, right? Conflict is there. No one likes it, but it's part of all the relationships, romantic or not. What matters is how you will handle the conflict in relationships. It can be very uncomfortable to disagree with your partner, and even more uncomfortable for you to have an argument, especially if you grew up in a home where it was never modeled that you can have a healthy disagreement, not arguments, but you can speak to people and disagree. And if you grew up in a family where it was not even accommodated that you can have a healthy disagreement, and you never saw anyone argue or even just as well as fight, it's scary and overwhelming when you experience conflict in a relationship, but it's not necessary to be avoided. Just confront it and know how to deal with it. It is essential. So learn to speak up. People who sweep uncomfortable feelings under the rug, so to speak, they are not really being honest. Don't sweep things under the rug. Talk before the night falls, before you sleep. Speak to your partner. If you don't do that, it will lead to a state of loneliness and you become disconnected, which will eventually push your relationship to an end. And as a parting note, realize, and as I summarize what I had said earlier, couples can go on a different life paths. Sometimes you and your partner start out having the same life goals, but then they change as time goes on. And maybe the change comes to you wanting to relocate to a different city, or where you want to travel more, and just changing your work-life pattern. In any case, your life paths may change somewhere along the way. Realize that, and don't realize that there can be lack of connection on even the most important life issues. So if you as a couple originally decide that, for example, you don't want to have a child, but the other person changes their mind along the route, and says having a child is very important for them, that new direction might be a deal breaker for you in life. So discuss those things. Don't be so engrossed when you're dating that you're not discussing the real aspect and seeing where exactly do you want to be. Don't just agree and say, I don't want children as well, because you really like this guy and you just want to say yes, 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 and to accommodate whatever he wants. But you actually know that you want to be a mother at some point. Sometimes we meet men that actually do want families, and suddenly the woman does not want to have a family. So realize that such things can be deal breakers in a relationship. And you don't know whether the partner will be willing to change course for you for that. And as you can see from, and as you've heard from what we have been talking about, there are various reasons or things that can lead to a relationship falling apart. And people often are often surprised when couples they know or they've seen in church to be Miss Perfect or the perfect Joneses eventually break up. And the exact reasons for perfect couples splitting up are different in different situations. Let's not look down on them, but understand and learn from their experiences. The core reason is the same. The relationship is not perfect. It was never meant to be perfect from the start. No relationship is perfect. Sometimes you're happy and connected in the early stages of the relationship and you think your partner is ideal. But as time goes on, you begin to realize the other person's flaws. They become clearer to you. And you may start to question the relationship, is it right after all? It takes some time to learn about your partner's flaws. So at least spend some time dating, collect the data before you say I do. Because once you say I do, it's very difficult to walk it back. Assess those trade-offs that you want to have that are inevitable. To try and avoid splitting up. And last is my last thought. Every partnership has strengths and weaknesses, and every person accepts some flaws in their partner. And so there is no such thing as perfect. Understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and decide what you pick and what you can tolerate, what you can grow from, what you can influence. At that time, engage and speak up. Right? And good luck to everybody.
All right.
With the relationships.
All right, there you have it. I think we hear the last closing remarks from our second panelist.
Okay, I would say as she was saying that there isn't a perfect relationship. That's because when we meet, we are two different people. Even like I can say, even with my sister, the one that I grew up with, we also fight. We are not perfect. Because we are not the same person. So because of how different we are, so I think like communication is still essential to make a relationship work. Let's communicate when you are not happy. Let's communicate what like if a person does something that you like, compliment them so that like they can keep on doing it. And there need to be like transparency in a relationship. So just like we are open to each other, it makes you feel comfortable, it makes you feel relaxed in that relationship, so that you won't be thinking like, is it working, is it not? So be talking about everything, be transparent. No, there's no perfect relationship. We have to work for it because you are two different people.
It has to be worked on. All right, there you have it. I believe it has been such an informative moment, and someone has learned. Like what I said, let's just be on the watch out for when we will be having time to speak about the cost of being in a relationship and being in a marriage, so that one can be equipped and understand what they are getting themselves into, who they are getting themselves into, and what is it that is to be expected. Not just to speak on an emotional basis, but to speak on the practicality of the aspects of relationships. So may the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord keep you. And I pray that if you are building a relationship or you're already in a relationship, may the Lord touch that relationship, and may you see your relationship becoming something that is admirable and that brings you life and no